Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I promise not to keep you long, but to try to keep you captivated for the next 20 minutes. I'm not a botanist, the unfortunate part. However, I'm quite interested in plants, and the connection that I've made with crew. Basically, the talk is going to be on the management of open spaces in eThekwini, and we want to look at a case study that's involved crew. Basically, some little bit of an overview of what we're going to cover. There are very few sections, about 5 of them. Just keep an eye on them. For an introduction, eThekwini municipal area basically is located in the east coast of South Africa. I'm sure we all know where it is. It possesses quite a big land mass, about 2,200 square kilometers, with a human population of about 3.5 million people, and that's counting, I suppose. It is a biodiversity hotspot. Located in the middle of Maputo land, Condolet and Albany hotspot, and currently, as we know, it's home to about 2,000 plant species. So it is quite a very diverse area. And the municipality currently owns about 78,000 hectares of open spaces, and this includes basically the critically endangered KZN sandstone sourfield. And if we are to look at where these open spaces are, you can see quite a good representation up in the inner west. Basically, our areas are located across the landscape in different vegetation types, but the reason for that representation there, that's basically where most of our KZN SS is, and that's where basically our department is currently focusing on. In addition to that, these areas are located in different social systems. You find some next to rural areas, you find some deep in the urban setting, you find some next to peri-urban areas. And as we know that all these areas poses different threats to the environment, depending on where the site is. We do have development pressures, mostly housing development. We have a threat from invasive species, mostly plants, because Devon is known as like a garden. Things grow quite quicker down there. We have issues of conflicting land use. That's one of our sites up in Peaceville. And also some hunting issues, illegal hunting issues. Arson, which we basically picked up in the recent past. But the big and the most important one is the climate change effects, which we basically are all battling with, because we don't know what's going to happen, or should I say, it's still very early to predict what basically will happen, even to these areas that you are managing. So, in response to these challenges, the Environmental Planning and Climate Protection Department basically initiated about 3 large-scale programs. But by large-scale programs, I mean these are programs that operate at a landscape level, and that include the Fire and Invasive Species Control Program, which is responsible for the management of municipal-owned areas, basically specifically the EPCPD-owned areas. And the FISC is responsible for the application or the management of these areas through IIP control, and the application of fires, and we basically regulate our activities based on the season. During the wet season, we focus mostly on IIP, and we do our fire management during the dry season. Of course, we could say there are successes in this. We have a well-documented field condition assessment which advises our fire application processes. We have our continuous IAP control operations on sites, which is also supplemented by the herbicide assist program. However, there has been very little focus on what happens after we've initiated our management interventions, specifically on what happens after the fire, the post-fire monitoring. has been there, but not necessarily with a very strong focus. And we all know that municipalities have shrinking budgets, so we always are looking for opportunities, and that is where the need for a partnership with CRU came in. And I'm saying partnership because these are two organizations that have different objectives, and they are run differently, but we always are trying to find a middle ground. And between the municipality and the SNB, there's already an existing relationship in that we have a data sharing agreement with SNB, which is well documented. However, because we tried to initiate a new approach, we had to think differently, fresh thinking. There are different opinions, but these two stakeholders had different opinions about each other, so we had to sort of like try to iron those first through the meetings that we've had. And through those meetings, basically, we shared information about ours came with the fire history of the area, and CRU basically presented their historical sightings of their target species. And we thought that was a well basically drafted plan, and off we went out to the field. About 20 sites were visited in the previous 2016 field season, which basically includes sites that are owned by the municipality. And we tried to coincide these visits with post-fire season, which means that it was time for the flowering of endangered flowers, which is what CRU is focusing on. And that was an opportune time for our CRU members, because they are quite young, so they can't walk in the field if it's moribund. So we have to create sort of like an enabling environment for them. But this case study is going to focus on 4 sites, which is Redcliffe, the Treasure Beach, St. Geren, and Forest Hills. On these 4 sites, I know that people are always, from CRU's side, they will always be interested in trying to find the interesting flowers. For us at the municipalities, it wasn't mostly about that, or should I say for the program. It was more of sort of like fact finding, trying to get data. And I felt like we did get data from the field. To CRU's surprise, at least 2 endangered species were identified and 4 vulnerable. But my interest basically was on the least concerned, because I think if we could keep most of our plants at that category, we would be doing a good job. As I've said, I'm not a botanist, so botanists will say something different, in that when they leave the house looking for an endangered plant, they want to find an endangered plant. If I leave the house, I'm quite happy if I find only least concerned species, because it means that something good is happening out there. We are managing our sites correctly. And we did get data, which is basically the baseline data, which means now that we have data for each site. We can then make decisions. And there are a lot of decisions that still need to be made, basically based on our activities. For instance, are our fire frequencies correctly applied? Are we having good fire retentions on our sites? What happens after we do alien clearing? What is the recruitment of our IAP control? We haven't looked at that. So this data basically is going to assist us in trying to think differently based on what we found. And I had to include that, although the target was endangered flowers as CRU's specific objective, ours was mostly to get data, and because it's important for decision making. This presentation wouldn't be a presentation without having this. So what is it that we found out there? This Sandersonia is regarded as declining, if I'm not mistaken, and we found it at Redcliffe. which is one of the sites that has been, I think it has a development application on it. So, and also it's got an open site, there's grazing, and fires there are usually applied by the community. So we have very less control in terms of how the fires are being burnt there, and the grazing pressure on this little fed. I think there was only 2 or 3 plants we found on that site. And yeah, I mean, with the fires and grazing on the sites, we don't know what's going to happen. So it would be nice when we go back there again to look at the area. Some beautiful laborers that we saw, and also some Venonia that we found down in the Treasure Beach. And you can, as I've said, we have a very young team, so we require quite an open area to work through. And they were busy in Asegai, and I'm sure we've had talks about one of the species that are found there. I don't know whether the team found it on that day, but check that. So we need data to manage these areas because things change quite quickly out there. This image here was taken in July, very same sites, somewhere in October, and there was a fire event somewhere in between. So you can see how things change, and the recruitment is quite quicker, and it's moving at a rate that we basically can't keep up with, which means for us to be able to make decisions, we need to get this continuous data so that we can keep our planning products updated, and for us to be able to make informed decisions as well, so that we can stop saying the municipality makes wrong decisions. Without data, you can't make good decisions. And citizen science, basically, all across the world, is viewed as the way to go in the world where budgets are shrinking. However, there is a growing need when we engage in these partnerships to try and have very clear objective of how we are going to structure our partnerships, and also the form of data that we need in terms of the frequency and how we want data. Those are the things that need to be agreed upon before we can even embark on an outing. And in most instances, those are things that we usually leave out. And yes, because I only have about 5 minutes, I would like to thank this group of people, the EPCPD crowd, the Senbi crew, for basically coming through and assisting. And yeah, I know that the assessments are continuing, and we are going to continue with the partnership. And yeah, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening.